Do I invite Sylvia and Mel to unmute and recite Psalm 97 alternately,
please? Yep.
Yeah. The Eternal One reigns, let the earth rejoice.
Let many isles be glad.
Clouds and darkness surround you.
Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
Your lightnings illumine the world.
The earth sees and trembles.
Mountains melt like wax before you, O God.
Before the ruler of all the earth.
The heavens proclaim your righteousness.
And all the peoples behold your glory.
Zion hears and is glad.
The daughters of Judah rejoice in your judgments.
For you are supreme over all the earth.
You are exalted far above all other gods.
Light dawns for the righteous.
And joy for the upright in heart.
Let the righteous rejoice in you.
And give thanks to your holy name.
Souls beloved.
That's a song we're about to sing now, Sylvia.
Okay.
Finish Psalm 97. Lovely to hear your voices. The other side of this island. Would you like to read in Hebrew or English?
Okay.
At the top of page 93. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'dvaro ma'ariv b'aravim, b'chochma poteh sha'arim, u'v'tvuna m'sheneh eitim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et hakochavim, b'mishmorotechem barakia rotono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, u'ma'aveh yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'vein layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo. Baruch atah Adonai ha'makarim ha'ravim. We praise you, O God, whose word makes evening fall.
Let's all join together.
Mitzvot, Chokim u'mishpatim, otanu limadata, otanu limadata. Akein Adonai, Eloheinu, b'shomeinu, u'b'kumeinu nasiya, b'chukecha v'nismach v'na'alon b'divrei Torah. ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ויורך ימינו ובהם יומם ולילה יומם ולילה. מאהבתך אל תסור ממנו, אל תסור ממנו לעולם אמין. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
We praise you, O God, for you love your people Israel. Join together in the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווה היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקמך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען יזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם הקדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם על אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Tony Kirstein, could I invite you to unmute and say the next prayer, please, Annette? Let me show you.
אמת ואמונה כל זאת, מקיים עלינו כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, האין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו, הפרענו מיד מלכנו גואלנו, מכף כל הארצים, ויוצא את עמו ישראל ממצרים, לחירות העולם, ורעב בניו, I'll read it from here, it's easier. How it says, ויוצא את עמו ישראל ממצרים לחירות העולם, ראו בניו וגבורתו, שיבחו והודו לשמו, ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם, לכן אנו שירה ושמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם.
מי כמוך בעיר אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות כמו ספר, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי יפדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל Yisrael. We praise you, O God, the Redeemer of Israel.
Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us far from wrongdoing. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian and deliverer, a gracious and merciful God. Guard our going out and our coming in, that now and always we may have life and peace. Baruch atah Adonai, haparesh sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol yoshvei tevel. We praise you, O God. May your sheltering peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth. Amen.
Amen. Adonai Shabbat Tivra Ufi Yadi Tehirater. Adonai Shabbat Tivra Ufi Yadi Tehirater. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'mevii Geula livnei b'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo b'Ahava, Melech Ozer Moshe Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei metim atah rav v'hoshia, Mashiv haruach u'molid ha'geshem, Mazriach ha'shemesh u'molid ha'tal. Simon, could I invite you to unmute and chant or sing the Machalkel, please? Mechachel chayim v'chesed, mechayim mehitzim v'rachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rafeh cholim, ומציא הסורים, ומחיה ומנצח משנה עפר. מי חמך בהר גבורות, ומי דמך מלך מיימץ ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, חיי המתים. We praise you, O God, the source of eternal life. Kadosh atah v'nora shemecha, ve'en lanu Eloah mibaladecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God. Bottom of page 99. Yisrael Malachot Shomrei Shabbat V'Korei Oneg Amakadosh Shali Amakadosh Shali Kol Yisrael Yitanu T'Tuvecha Vashmini, Ratzita bo bekidashto, Hemadat Yamim, Oto Karata, Zeker Masre Vareshi. Eloheinu, Eloi Avotenu, Levseimim, Nulateimu. Kadashenu, B'mitzvotecha, V'tein Elkeinu, B'toratecha. Sameinu, B'tuvecha, V'samacheinu, B'shuvatecha. V'tahilinu, V'hanhileinu Adonai Eloheinu Yahava U'v'ratzon Shabbat Kodshecha V'yanukova Yisrael, Mekadosh Shomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadosh HaShabbat. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Shabbat. I ask Judy Berkowitz to unmute and say the next prayer, please. Let's say, Eternal God.
Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your light. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otech livadecha b'yorei nevor.
Thank you, Judy. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elokei Avotenu le'olam va'ed. Tzurayenu v'kayishenu, ata hu l'dor v'dor. Nodeh lecha v'nesaper tehillotecha, al chayenu ha'masulim biyadecha, v'al nishmotenu ha'pekudot lach, v'al nisecha shebachol yom imanu, v'al niflotecha v'tovotecha, shebachol eit erev v'boker v'zochorayim, baruch atah Adonai, hatov shemcha u'lecha na'er l'hodot. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. I ask Stuart and Ruth, please, to unmute for the next prayer. Shalom Vav, supreme source of peace.
Thank you, David. Supreme source of peace, grant true and lasting peace to your people Israel. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples may be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Osei HaShalom.
Amen.
Thank you. We continue for some moments of silent, personal, and private prayers. Nick, could I ask you now to jump to page 607? Page 607, please. Thank you. Because we're live streaming this evening, I'm not going to mention the names of individual people in our thoughts. Eternal God, thank you for the gift of life and for the healing powers that you have implanted within your creatures. Sustain, we pray, all our loved ones who may be going through a time of illness. Grant them all courage, strength to endure their pain and weakness. Teach us how best we may help them by our love and our care for them and by our own composure. May all those who are ill know that you, O God, are with them, comforting them, reinforcing their will to get well. May their afflictions soon be ended. May they return in health to family, friends, and community. May it be your will, Eternal One, our God and God of our ancestors, speedily to grant perfect healing, both of body and mind, to all those who are sick. We praise you, O God, the source of healing. V'hi ratzon lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elokei Avotenu, shetishlach mahera refuah shelema, refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf lechol hacholim b'toch kehela shelanu. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei hacholim. Amen. Oh, say shalom b'roma, hallelujah, say shalom, aleinu, al kol Yisrael, al kol bnei Adam. Well, it looks like the three wise monkeys sitting in front of you this evening. It's really delightful for me to be in somewhere new, but together with somebody who I've known for a very long time. Many of you will know that when I was a student, a rabbinic student at Learbeck College, so was Ron Berry. So we sat together in class for 5 years. In the middle of those the 5 years, the third year of our studies, again, we were around the corner from each other in Yerushalayim. And I had a little baby girl then called Liana, and I remember how Ron was very helpful to Fiona and I doing a lot of babysitting when we were out enjoying ourselves in the evenings. As you see, we are sitting in a rabbi's study. What you can't see is in front of us, above Ron's desk, is an Aron Kodesh, a holy ark with the 10 commandments, and hanging on the key is a yad. It's a wooden yard, and I'm going to invite Rabbi Berry in a few moments to speak about his great skills with his hands in practically creating and making things, holy things of importance for Jewish worship. Obviously the yad, the Aron Kodesh, Sefer Torah, but in particular, this week we celebrated Purim. And those of you who joined in the service on Thursday lunchtime will have seen the Megillah in my house and Megillah that Rabbi Lee Sunderland was using. I have never written my own Megillah, but as Ron will tell you, he himself has written his own, and hopefully he'll be able to show you what he's done and tell you and share with you how he's come to these great, useful and precious skills. So hand over to you. You can now move to the central desk and move a bit closer to the camera if you wish. Pass your things as well if you want.
What David didn't say is that for the 5 years we studied together at Learbeck College, he was asleep most of the time.
Big dozer.
And we always thought it was because he had a new baby. But actually, that wasn't the reason. He just likes to sleep in the afternoons. But he somehow imbibed all the lectures whilst he was asleep in some mysterious way. He could hear them in his sleep and absorb them in his sleep. A marvelous skill, which I recommend to everyone. Now, David has come here, asked me to talk about my sofhut, the work that I do, and my wood turning. That's not what I designed to tell you about. When he asked me to deliver a sermon, I didn't know he was going to tell me what sermon he wanted me to deliver. So in actual fact, there are two things. The first is what I was going to do with this evening, which is to engage in some creative imagination. Let us try to imagine ourselves as priests and priestesses, because we are in the Torah portion in the book of Leviticus, the second of the book of Leviticus, which is Torah Kohanim, the teachings of the priests. So I thought we could have a think together about priestly matters. Just imagine that we are priests and priestesses of a conquering army. We're following a conquering army into a territory which has been subdued. And what we want to do is help the people to forget their own gods and their own religious culture. We want to take over. We want to impose our system of faith upon a conquered people. Like the Israelites when they entered the promised land. So they devised a system of sacrificial worship. Now, if you were priests and priestesses following a conquering army into a territory, what sort of rituals and ceremonies could you think of that you would like to suggest would be more appropriate than the existing ceremonies and rituals of those conquered people? Have a think about that for a couple of minutes. You might like to think of ceremonies and rituals to do with music, or the type of clothing people wear, or sacrifices, or the food. Have a think of what sort of creative ceremonies you might like to come up with that people could do to worship your God, that you would like them to adopt. I wonder if any of you can come up with any ideas.
Music and dancing would be something that people could join in and be carried away by.
Right. Well, when the Israelites entered the promised land, they were instructed to destroy the sacred groves and smash the totem poles and take down the altars of the conquered peoples. But were they instructed to dance? Well, we know that David danced when the ark came. Is that the sort of thing you thought about?
Yes, because that would show reverence and joy for your own way of worship.
We do dance on
Carry them
Simchat
away.
Torah, don't we? We dance with the scroll, so that's a good idea. Any other good ideas?
People should feel free to unmute themselves and
Oh yes,
Contribute.
unmute yourself and contribute.
I know what it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be cutting up animals and splashing the blood everywhere.
some people might enjoy that.
But it must have been very similar to what the Canaanites were doing. It might have been the same thing. In fact, they might have had versions of it because we know that they were doing the same thing as the Canaanites for quite a long time.
Mhm. I mean, I would agree with what Tony has said, that from what I know about ancient religions of different peoples, the form was actually very, very similar. The normal thing was to have libations and sacrifices and offerings. But the radical difference of the Israelites, where everybody else had idols in their temples, statues, like the ancient Egyptians, and the weird religion of the ancient Israelites, they went through all the sacrifices, like the ancient Greeks and Romans, but there was no image and there was no statue and there was no idol. That was the radical change.
but a lot of the time, in fact, latter end of Solomon, he did include idols from his wives. So and we know that Gideon had an idol, and Moses' grandson had an idol as well, Jonathan. He was running him and his family ran the idol of Dan. So I think they must have been very similar. It's only later on that they started having a god without an idol. Perhaps Hezekiah's time.
Well, we have an invisible God, but what about the ceremonies? If you were going to be priests or priestesses, how would you worship? What style of worship? What sort of clothing would you wear? Would you, if you didn't have sacrifices, what would you do?
Well, I would more or less do what we do now. Because I think,
imagination.
yeah, really, I can't kind of think of, well, I don't have the imagination to think of a different form of worship, but it certainly wouldn't be the way they did it then.
Well, I was in a Hindu temple once, and someone did a wonderful thing. They had 7 jugs of water of all colours of the rainbow.
Oh.
And they had one person pouring in the yellow water, one person pouring in the green water, one person pouring the red, and one person pouring in the purple, and so on. And when the waters were all poured together into a huge bowl, they became clear.
Yeah, wow.
And I thought that was a wonderful ceremony, but I don't know what it meant.
And of course, the week of Purim corresponds with the full moon of Hindu Holi. So if you're in India, people are wandering around full, not of coloured waters, but of coloured paints.
Throwing coloured paint at each other. That's another ceremony, you
It's
see.
something we should introduce at ELELS, throw coloured paint at each other.
Well,
Any other person apart from Tony would like to contribute? Let's go.
well, the point is that tell us that so we don't have to wear our good suits. Hello, frozen.
David, what are you doing?
Okay.
Okay. So now, all right, well, I'll leave that with you and you can think of other ceremonies. I mean, yes, the reason why I thought of this was because I was at an interfaith get-together, a workshop, and we were asked to think about ceremonies. And I remembered to when I was a little boy, I was raised in a non-practicing home. My father was a communist, didn't do anything, he was an atheist. So I had no Jewish upbringing. And when my mother left my father, taking my brother and I with her, it coincided with the time I went to the grammar school. And at the grammar school, a rabbi, actually he was an Orthodox minister, he wasn't a rabbi, he was the reverend. He used to come to teach us marquetry in the art club. And somehow he found out I was Jewish, but ignorant. So he phoned up my mother and said, "What are you going to do about your son's bar mitzvah?" And she said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, I will arrange for him to have private lessons from the son of my synagogue secretary." And so that's what happened. So for a few months, like the little schoolboy in Shakespeare's play, I crept snail-like, unwillingly, to these lessons. And I was taught my Mufti and Haftarah, parrot fashion, by this very nice man, Mr. Simons. I didn't understand a word of it, not even in English translation. And then I had to go to the synagogue for my bar mitzvah. Again, totally alien to me. I'd never experienced anything like it in my life. And I was given a talit to wear, a prayer shawl. And this is what struck me about ceremonial garb. I didn't know what the talit meant or why I had to wear it, but I was given it and I put it on. And it had no meaning to me whatsoever. And I read this gibberish, which I'd been taught parrot fashion, and it had no meaning to me whatsoever. And even though I'd read it in English translation, I wouldn't have understood what it meant. And I went through this strange ceremony in a synagogue which was totally alien. I'd never been in one before. And that was my bar mitzvah.
Could you just share with people what the grammar school was and which synagogue it was?
Yeah, it was Ilford County High School for boys, and it was Beehive Lane Shul. And the Reverend Sidney Black, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing, was the minister there, and he was coming to teach me marquetry in the art club of my school, and he was the one who arranged my lessons. Anyway, to cut a long story short, now when I wear the talit, I know what it means. I understand the ritual macrame of the tassels, and I know all about the references in traditional books about wearing of talit and the tassels and what it all symbolically means. And I wonder sometimes when I see people wearing a talit if they know why they're wearing it or what it means. And that's the interesting thing about wearing special garb. The priests all had to wear special garb for their functions. And it's important. David was complaining earlier on about his tie, or rather Fiona was complaining about David's tie and how it was tied. And how many rabbis wear a tie for Shabbat because they're in leadership position, they think it's the thing to do. But of course, nothing ritual about ties, nothing Jewish about ties. But people do it anyway. Now, David asked me to tell you about my craft work, so I'll do that now.
Very special skills.
So the first thing is this. Now, you all know what this is. This is a gregor. This gregor I made myself.
It's the biggest gregor in the world. But as Fiona said, it's so much nicer. It's a wooden handmade gregor. It's not a mechanical machine-made plastic brightly coloured gregor.
This is my Megillah. You'll see that it is in a stand hanging. This is because the stand is one of the themes of the festival of Purim, because Haman was hanged. So it's in a hanging stand, and
it's a gallows.
It's a gallows, yes. And so here's a gallows knot, and so we can undo this and get it out, and I'll explain it to you.
A nice noose.
It's a noose. So here it is. Now, you can see, turned round in mirror-eyes, this is the Aleph, stands for Achashverosh, and it also stands for Esther. You can see the handle. It has a big bead on the bottom. That's symbolic for 100. It's two small beads here and here. That's the 20. And then there's 7 small, that's the 127 provinces in the kingdom of the empire of Achashverosh. And then there's a tower. This is Shushan, castellated at the top to represent the capital, the king's palace there. 7-pointed crown is, of course, representative or symbolic of Queen Esther, the Jewish queen. And this is the golden scepter, this finial at the top here. And if I unclip it here and pull it open, you can see there's my writing.
It's actually very, very small.
I won't get it all out, it's too long. And then that all rolls back after it's been read and clips in there like that. And then it gets hung up for next year.
Thank you, that was lovely.
What?
Well, don't disappear. Can I just ask if anybody who's just seen this magnificent Megillah and the man who wrote it, have you got any questions to ask him about his skills and how he's practiced it over his life? And Jewish ritual art and clothing. Ruth and Stuart. Can't see you. Can't hear you. Have we frozen?
I just admired that work. I can't, as a failed woodwork student many years ago, that's absolutely so admirable. The work amazes me.
Thank you.
How many hours of practice and it must have taken? How many hours doing it? And the writing, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I know a bit about woodwork. We must have a lovely lathe. Kol hakavod.
Thank you.
Will you show them one of your many mezuzot?
I'll show you a mezuzah. But I have to
Mezuzah.
pick this up. I'll show you a mezuzah that I've written quite a few mezuzot, but I'll show you the ones outside the door here. Right. So this is one of my mezuzot. You can see it there. There.
It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful.
Here's another one here.
Oh,
There.
oh.
Absolutely beautiful.
And I write the scroll myself as well, of course.
They're lovely, yes, they're lovely.
And made with
I
love.
didn't make that. I didn't make that yard. My yard's all downstairs. Okay, there you go. Now you're back to David.
Well, next time David reads from the Sefer Torah at the shul, you can bring the yard that Ron very kindly made for him, which is beautiful. It's twisted and open work, all in one piece of wood.
A beautiful wooden spiral yard. And the last thing I'll mention is when my first grandchild was born, Ron made a beautiful wooden rattle for baby Tally.
And Philippa, yeah.
He's a very skillful artist, both in wood and in writing on parchment. Let's turn now to page 520, page 520. Alenu l'shav be'ach l'adon, kol ha'tekedu ha'legotze bereshit, asher sam yalkeinu yached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lamik malchuto, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים מלמעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו אמוד אמת מלכנו ופסולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ Could I ask Miriam Sanders, please, to unmute and read Trusting in You, or Alkane?
Alkane, nekaver lecha Adonai Eloheinu, leot mechavei b'tiferet uzecha, laha'avir gululim min haaretz, v'ha'alelim kavot v'yechaveitun, letakein olam b'malchut shaddai, v'chol b'nei basar v'yikra'u b'shmecha, lahafotnot elecha, kol rish'ei aretz.
May all people on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you let them humble themselves, to your glorious name let them give honor. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. But ultimate sovereignty is yours. To all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. V'ne'ema va'yadonai lamelech al kol haaretz. V'ayom hahu yeh Adonai echad v'shemo echad. And we go now to the second prayer on the next page, please. As we worship before you, O God, we think of all those who once shared with us the joys and the burdens of life who are no longer in our midst. On this Shabbat in particular, we remember the name of Martin Schumann, whose funeral took place in the last 30 days, and the following yahrzeits. Anna Ninette Redding, Mel's father, Barnett Millenbach, Joseph Levy, Alice's husband, Basil Alexander, Sonia Moskovich's sister, Naomi Moskovich, Shirley Lewis, Paul Molloy, Ida Imbritskaya, Edward Wiseman, and Al Panicot. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love that continues to unite us with all our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them that we always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those in sorrow and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. Let's move down to Kaddish, please. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'olma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yomechonu, v'chayei dichol Beit Yisrael, ha'agala v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavalach la'lam olamei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, V'yitara v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dikudusha barichu, Le'ela min kol berachata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, Amiran b'yoma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalom Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'momar, v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam v'imru Amen. Stuart, could you unmute yourself now, please?
Thank you, David. Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Rabbi David, for taking the sermon, and to Rabbi Ron, thank you for your sermon and for your exhibit of absolutely phenomenal work. Really skilled and really admirable. And thanks, Nick, for hosting and all that took part. Tomorrow morning's service begins at 10:45 and led by Rabbi Richard, and it's a new members Shabbat, but of course we can all come as well. This Sunday at 4 p.m. is the Purim Spiel, which will be held in person. I think probably, Nick, all the places have gone by now, but you can still attend on Zoom. So
you can attend on Zoom, but also if you would like to come, there are a couple of places left. So please send me an email or get in touch with me. And let me know, and then we'll be delighted to see you. Thanks, Stuart.
Yeah, thanks. It's at Clortic, but not the synagogue. It's at Clortic, but to give us that little bit more room. This Monday, every weekday at 11 a.m. is 11 Zids for discussion and chat over a very wide area of subjects. This Monday at 7, we'll be having one of our more than a game chats on football, led by Nick. And our Puzzlers group has moved to a new time, and it starts this Thursday at 7 p.m. and that will be the regular time. Lots of events are listed for the following week on the update, including a singing performance by Swezzers, which you can join in. There's details of it on the website and all other things as well. Wish you meal long life, and to all who mourn. Wish everyone well. Shabbat shalom. Take care. Thanks, David. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Nice to see you, Ruth. Yigdal on page 526.
Elohim Hai, Vayishtaba, Nimsa v'yeinei tel matziyuto, Echad v'yein yachid, Kayihudo, Nedalam v'gam ein sof li'achduto. Eino demut haguf, v'yeino guf aloha, Olochela kedushato, Kadmon lechol davar asher nivra, Rishon v'yein reshit l'reshito, Hino Adon olam alakol notza, Yoreh gedulato malchuto, Asher v'nevuato natano, El Anshe Segulato V'Tiffarto, Lo Kam B'Yisrael Kamo Moshe Od Navi Umabit Et Tamunato Torat Temet Natan Le'amo El Al Yad Navi Od Eman Beito Lo Ya Chalif Ha'el V'lo Yamir Dato Olamim Lazurato Sofer Yodea Setaharenu Mabit L'sof Davar B'Kadmato Gomel Ish Chesed Gamif Mahalo Anoten L'Rasha Derishnato Yishpot L'Getz Yamin Al Kol Basarucho Lifno Rakeke Teshuato Kaye Olam Nata Batoheinu Baruch Adonai Shem Tehilato Kaye Olam Nata Batoheinu Baruch Adonai
Shem Tehilato. We conclude with the priestly blessing. In our minds, of course, is very much the thought of the people and the armed forces of the state of Ukraine, which is very far at the moment from enjoying the blessings of peace. May God bless us and keep us. May God look kindly upon us and be gracious to us. May God reach out to us and to the whole world with tenderness. Give us peace. Yivalechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Now, can we move to page 564, the Kiddush?
Maybe somebody.
Well, it's downstairs. I'll have to go and get it.
Right. Another of Rabbi Berry's great skills, apart from writing Megillas and Sefer Torahs and mezuzahs, and apart from turning beautiful objects of wood, he also bakes his own challah. And he's just popped downstairs to get his challah, and we'll make Kiddush together. Page 564. In fact, Ron can make Kiddush.
I won't share it on screen, David. I think it'll be lovely to have you and Rabbi Ron and Fiona and the challah in much larger view for us. So I'm not going to share it. I think everyone knows the blessings, so we'll do that.
Well, we're just awaiting the delivery of the challah.
And the wine.
By the way, I also knew Reverend Sidney Black of Beehive Lane Synagogue. He was very helpful to me when I started off at Barkingside Progressive about 36 years ago. He was very friendly, and we shared in a great love of opera. He had so many opera records. Don't know if anybody here also knew Reverend Sidney Black of Beehive Lane.
I knew him very well.
You did.
He used to go to odd places, and he brought back an oil lamp which was supposed to be a 4,000-year-old one. The guy told him it was 4,000-year-old. He gave him 4 lira for it, which was the current currency at the time. He didn't believe him. He took it to the British Museum, and it was
4,000 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
I never knew he went into Ilford County to teach the boys marquetry.
No, that's amazing.
I just wonder if Sidney Black was still alive, what he would have made of knowing what Ron Berry has done so many years later.
Marquetry.
I'm sure Reverend Black would have been so proud of that young boy who he got to have.
Reverend Black married us as well.
Sorry, who did he marry?
Bev and Len.
Oh, right, Bev and Len were married.
and he taught my daughter as well. Yeah, in school. Lovely man. Yeah.
Just going to unpop a bottle of champagne to make it a over champagne.
Bit nicer than Baldwin.
Yeah, can you wait a few minutes while we get there, please?
Share this with you all.
Well, we are sharing it virtually.
We are sharing it virtually.
Be careful, Ron.
Okay, everyone get down.
Did Rabbi Berry make that as well?
I made the colour, but not the wine.
He doesn't have a vineyard, but he does have a beehive.
Yeah, the other thing we have in common is we are both rabbis and both beekeepers.
We are the apiarist rabbis.
You don't have a whiskey still, do you?
I wish.
Would you like to make a dish? No?
I think you should.
Well,
Thank you.
Just a minute.
it's enough. Enough.
I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay. Yom HaShishi, Vayechul Hashemayim v'haaretz v'chol tzavam, Vayechal Elohim bayom hashviti malakto asher asa, Vayishpot bayom hashviti mikol malakto asher asa, Vayevarech Elohim et yom hashviti, Vayikadesh oto, Kivo Shabbat mikol malakto, Asher bara Elohim lakasot, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'yahava uv'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'makasei v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrei kodesh, zecher l'tziyat mitzrayim, kivanu v'chata v'otanu kirashta, mikol ha'chahamim, v'shabbat kodshecha v'yahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
L'chaim, everyone. Oh, that's nice.
Wonderful that we don't have to drive home anywhere tonight.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzei lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Now, if anybody would like to unmute themselves and have a chat and a gossip, feel free.